Hey guys, VaulSC here. Hope that you're doing well. Very recently, we had a game day in Auckland City, and I had the chance to play against my opponent, Andy. You may have seen some of his miniatures, Flame Berserkers, posted on social media recently. He doesn't really use a lot of Facebook, Reddit, that kind of thing, so I went ahead and took some photographs of his awesomely painted miniatures and posted them around, so you may have seen that. But of course, I played a game of Last Argument with him on the weekend, and it was the 100 Kingdoms against Dweghom. Dweghom, at the moment, are in a little bit of a bad spot because they are due for an update, which is probably coming in the next month. A lot of other factions have had really cool things added and overhauls, and they are just overdue for that. 100 Kingdoms, of course, still enjoying the recent changes. It feels recent. I know it's a while ago now, but it still feels kind of fresh. 100 Kingdoms in a great place at the moment, in my opinion. But we had the chance to play a 2,000-point game of Last Argument, and it was a good one, so I would be happy to share it with you guys. Why don't we just dive into it? Why don't we just have a look? This is my list for the day. It is featuring the Errant of the Shield, just because I miss him. You know, he's cool. I put a lot of work into painting his shield, so he's there. But primarily, this is a list which has the Noble Lord as the Warlord and the Imperial Officer as the Dynastic ally. You know, Feudal Imperial, just a really good combo, and probably the best combo overall. The idea is that you mostly take infantry, and your officer is giving 2 regiments a turn, the Vanguard, which is very helpful, and the Supremacy turn of the Opportunists, and the Free Reform, which is just amazing on everything. In the meantime, the Noble Lord, of course, dishing out the reroll 6s and free veteran for the whole warband. So he's excellent. And, of course, making a lot of your feudal stuff into Imperial so that they can benefit from the Vanguard and the Opportunists and the free reform. So that's how that goes. But we've snuck in with a little bit of orders here just so we can pick up the Order of the Shield guy with Elysian Fragment and Order of the Ashen Dawn. The weakness of this build is that his militia are just a bit flimsy, and the cost of the character himself kind of blows out the expense of the militia. The militia are cheap, but the Errant isn't, so generally not really a meta pick, but I like it, I enjoy it, and I still think Ashen Dawn are very, very good. They've been nerfed so many times, but they are still just such a solid regiment, and when you have just one single heavy regiment in your army like this does, they just appear on turn 3, there's a ton of infantry to screen for them, and by around about turn 5, they're into the fighting and you just get solid value out of them. It's hard not to go wrong with that. But otherwise, just taking the same kind of setup that I normally do, just still addicted to the 8 Household Guard with Armor of Dominion. You see that in many of my battle reports. I just enjoy it. It took so much effort to put those miniatures together, I just can't not use that. And the officer here with the Hunter Cadre, bringing in probably my favorite unit in the entire catalog, the Militia Bowmen. I think they've always been my favorite Conquest regiment, and one reason why is that when you have a fantasy setting that is just so chock full of supernatural creatures and magic and everything that is just supernatural, it just makes your game so much more grounded when you are able to have a regiment that is just a bunch of turnip farmers who have no military training, who just have to show up because the Noble Lord commands them to, and they're enlisted, and the cheapest chips. And in game terms, they're an additional card. They unlock a restricted regiment. They're super cheap, and they can score because of the Relentless Drills rule where you've got an officer with them. So they're not bad. In super competitive play, you don't see them just because a really good player knows how to really manage trading regiments with you and controlling the board and putting regiments where they need to and picking things off. And of course, if you lose one stand of bowmen, they can't score anymore. So generally speaking, because they don't have any fighting impact, most people don't take them, but I personally quite like them. So my opponent running the same list that he typically does, and this is just based on his model collection. He's still, having to borrow a few initiates off me to field the entire list, and this is about as good of a list you can make with that particular collection of models, and we're of course all waiting for the update to make the faction more interesting. But yeah, you've got the Warlord Sorcerer with Graft of Fire and Fire School, Steelshaper and the Fireforged, 2 blocks of initiates with the Kirweg and the Reg, And of course the Ironclad over here. So we'll be playing on Decline Flank. This is the mission where there are 6 small objectives, and every turn each player can deny their opponent a scoring from one of the circles, but you still count as seizing it for the purposes of having the bonus point for having several objectives at the same time. So that's quite an important feature to not really miss. If you look at this shot of our table, we've got one objective here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and this one here is actually, I ran out of appropriately sized circles, so this one is actually meant to be a 3-inch circle, not a 4.5 radius. So that's how it's looking. Of course, we've got the impassable tree, a couple of normal forests, and a couple of normal hills, so that's what things are going to be looking like. My light contingent here is looking pretty robust. You've got the forward force Imperial officer with the bow boys, Militia Bowmen, then, of course, the Squires, 2 units of crossbows, 1 unit of crossbows. The other unit of crossbows, I didn't manage to pass the roll for them, and the militia with the Order of the Shield. Now, you will notice, if you look carefully, that there are 6 stands of militia, but in my list there's only 5. I accidentally put all of the militia on the table because they're just sitting in a group in the box, and I just pulled them out without remembering to leave one stand of militia in the box. I should get a slap on the wrist for inadvertently cheating like that, but as you'll see from this game, that made no difference to the the mechanical actual fighting, so I'm glad it didn't impact things too much. Over here, opponent bringing on the Ballistae on his left flank behind this hill here. Well, he's got the Flame Berserkers on his extreme right flank. He's got no characters at the light turn 1 stage, whereas I've got 2 characters, so I can easily out-deploy him here. Then I just bring in the rest of my army, and it's all going on the right-hand flank opposite the Ballistae. The militia going for the center, of course, they can score, and the mage can score here. And the mage can easily outfight the Ballistae because she can heal her stands back, whereas they can't. And if I want to, I can even use the Imperial officers' battlefield orders to give harden to the crossbows, just so they reroll, so they can at least save on 1s rather than being punched through with AP. So there's the militia. Really proud of the way that the character turned out there with the shield. Used a lot of different metallic paints and washes on that. Looked really cool. So the mage, of course, camping on this objective. The command stand is on the circle, although, again, the circle is actually meant to be a little bit smaller than that, but this is turn 1. I'll have turn 2 to move on to the actual real scoring area. Since this photo was taken, I've actually put a lot more paint on my bowmen. Really proud of them. Just really want to do a good job in them because I intend to put them in lists a bit more, even though other people don't. I just really quite enjoy them. So turn 2, we're going to just sort of work our way through the characters, of course, and then deploy the rest of the regiments. So what he's doing here is he's bringing on the Dweg and the Initiates towards one of his middle objectives there, so they'll be able to score that in the middle. I'm bringing on 3 men-at-arms right behind the crossbows. The plan is for them to just hurdle over the crossbows and just leapfrog them and get into combat with the Ballistae. And with the support of the mage, they'll be able to heal back stands and easily defeat the Ballistae. And that's going to mean that if he doesn't deploy any more bulk on this side of the table, I'll just simply win this flank. But if he commits too much more onto this flank, then I'll be able to win in other areas. So it's with 100 Kingdoms, part of the strategy is about out activating your opponent, but also out deploying them and out spreading really your army in a more efficient, economical way to ensure that you win 2 out of 3 of the different regions of the board. All right, Pride and Joy, the big turtle shell, the 9 stands, well, 8 household guards plus 1 character on the extreme left-hand flank. They're just going to sit here for a while and wait to see what my opponent deploys. If he deploys absolutely everything on this flank, I'm just going to sit here and just camp it. And if he deploys hardly anything on this flank, I'm just going to move up towards his side of the board and then bring on something else just to babysit the zone effectively. You've also got the Hunter Cadre through the center there. And at the end of turn 2, we end up looking like this. So because of the wonders of Vanguard from the Imperial officer, we've got the household guard on the extreme left scoring there, we've got the militia in the middle scoring there, and we've got the mage on the right hand side scoring there, and everything else is just moving in to support, whereas my opponent's only got 3 things on the board so far. So going turn 3, we will be bringing on our Ashen Dawn, obviously. Militia going last because I'm thinking about setting them up for a turn 4 play with Elysian Fragment. So that's the thinking there. Otherwise, just going to burn all the characters, to move everything else through the middle and get to the late game stuff at the end. So opponent bringing on the Rag with his 4 stands of initiates, no magic items or anything in here. This is on my right-hand flank nearby to the Ballistae. Then we have the Fireforged coming through the middle with the Tempered Steelshaper into the forest. Great position for them to be in. The forest is going to protect them against any shooting from crossbows and Hunter Cadre, and they are going to be well placed to support surrounding regiments with the Steelshaper's spells. So extreme left-hand flank for me. He's encroaching on my position with the Flame Berserkers, setting up a position for a charge next turn. Kind of happy for him to charge here because they don't really have armor piercing. I've got Armor of Dominion anyway, and with Defense 3 reroll 6s, I'm not going to take too many casualties here, and it's only going to take me 1 round of halberds to chop through his Berserkers. So that's better than average here position for me. On this side, the men-at-arms, like we talked about, leapfrogging over the crossbows to get into position where they're going to get shot by the Ballistae, take some wounds, but they are defense 3, and the Mage can heal them with the water spell, but also there is a Mage spell which makes them obscured, Call, Fog, or something like that, so that's also going to be used this turn. Over here, Ballistae attempting to do some damage to the boys, but again, for the reasons I just mentioned, they won't really have that much success at that. On this side, we've got the officer just moving to the left a little bit more here. What's going to happen is that the militia in front of them are going to push forward and commit themselves to something that they can damage with Elysian Fragment, and then the officer is going to come in behind and take over camping of that zone, because with the 3 militia plus the extra character stand, they can score, and so long as nobody shoots at them to remove wounds, then they're going to be able to just continue farming those points for a while. All right, so we have the Caraweg setting up position on this zone to the left. I'm starting to think that they might be a suitable target for the Elysian Fragment, because during the Imperial Officer's Supremacy turn, I can spread out the militia into one big conga line and get to within range. They've got a Servite in them as well. Go for the charge with Elysian Fragment and chop through all of the shields there. He does have Elemental Potency tokens, though, so that could be one thing that slows that plan down a little bit. And then the Hunter Cadre, just picking away at them a little bit, but again, they've got Defense 4 and Flaming Oratory for the Tenacious, so not much I can do. What I really want to be able to do here is have the Hunter Cadre fire at one of his Drakes for the Fiend Hunter as the main strategy. All right, so Squires just pulling in front of the Household Guard here. I want to make it really awkward for him, so if he charges them in the next turn with the Flame Berserkers, it's a very convenient position for me to then countercharge with the Household Guard. So if he trades his Berserkers for the Squires, that's not a terrible trade for me. If we go and have a look at it, Flame Berserkers, he's paying, 160 for that, whereas the Squires are 130, so it's slightly better trade for me. He is likely to kill the Squires, although there's a small chance with dice going badly for him, I might be able to live with one stand. But if I win the roll and decide to just go in first, the Squires could actually do a bit of damage from the flank there with Opportunists. So then he brings in his Hellbringer Drake. I must say that the Hellbringer Drake, not very effective against the Household Guard because of their Armor of Dominion, and not effective against the Squires because of their Tenacious 2 against shooting. But the character riding the Drake with Fireballs is going to be effective against the Squires. So this is maybe a bit of a misplay. I kind of felt myself sweating a little bit when I realized that this was a possibility. And it's from the flank as well, so if he just cleans out a free unit of Squires with his spells, then that is a bit of a blunder for me, so not particularly happy about this position. So we have the Household Guard just turning around a little bit. I just want to avoid any situation where I get flanked, and they're still camping the zone, and I just kind of want to bait his Hellbringer into going after me because they can survive that very easily. So over here, the Hellbringer, again, as we talked about, can't do much damage to the Squires from shooting, but can with spells. But I think, fortunately, we're a little bit out of range. So I think what ended up happening here is that he fired one of the spells into the Squires and did a stand's worth of damage. So what I was able to do is I was able to select this stand here as the casualty, which kind of puts the regiment out of range. So if you measure their actual range between the regiments for the second spell, he couldn't do it. So that kind of saved my butt a little bit. Over here, the Knights, picking up the same position. They are enticing the Flame Berserkers to go after them. I know I'm committing a lot of regiments here, but there isn't really a better space for the Knights to go. And the thinking is that if the Knights charge first, they'll do quite a bit of damage to the Flame Berserkers. But if the Flame Berserkers charge the Knights, then I've got Defense 4 with rerolls from the nearby Noble Lord. So it just makes it even more awkward for the Flame Berserkers in this position. And frees up my Squires to go after, say, his Hellbringer and tie that up in close combat if needed. All right, over here we've got the Mage just moving in behind their little shield wall here of boys. I know that the Ballistae are on a hill and can shoot over the shields, but I'll soon be moving the men-at-arms onto the hill as well to get the better of them. And then, of course, turn 3, the Ashen Dawn appear. They're going to come in behind the Hunter Cadre. They just need a good, solid place to set up, and the middle is okay, although after thinking about for a bit, there is the problem of being shot at by the Fireforged and the Hellbringer Drake in this position. I wasn't really sure where else to put them, though, so they could be in for a bit of a tough time with all of that AP. So at the end of turn 3, also moving out the militia into a spot where if I win the roll, what I'm going to do is actually spread them out with the Imperial Officer's Supremacy and then charge the initiates, popping Elysian Fragment and stabbing them with as many spears as I possibly can. So that's the end of turn 3, and you can sort of see the positioning there. I'm going to sacrifice the militia into the initiates, and then this unit of militia are going to move up onto the circle there. And on the right-hand flank, I'm still winning there. On the left-hand flank, I'm going to kill his Flame Berserkers. So just really waiting to see where the other Fireforged and his Hellbringer end up sitting. And this, of course, is the left-hand flank, where you can see I'm about to deal with the Flame Berserkers, but there is that dragon, which has a lot of juicy targets. Okay, so card order for turn 4. We're going to go with Elysian Fragment first, followed by the militia, and then we're going to go to the Household Knights to charge the Flame Berserkers and go from there. And the Ashen Dawn are going to go last because they just don't want to move into range of the Fireforged too early in the turn. Okay, so we did win the roll. We've got the Elysian Fragment popped here. Again, I'm not supposed to have that additional stand of militia at the back. All right, but what ends up happening here, of course, is that we go to Cleave 3. He's saving all ones, but he's got a lot of those tokens to spend to block damage, and they've got good resolve. He's also got Tenacious, and Militia here don't have Blessed, so they're going to miss half their attacks. So this actually didn't go particularly well. Shaved off a couple of stands at the back, and that was about it. So probably not the best thing in the world, all things considered, because now he's actually in range to target them with absolutely everything and he can wipe them out. So given the cost of the militia and the cost of the character, trading that for a couple of stands of initiates, just not really worth it. But I was kind of worried that I'd lose the shootout otherwise. But, you know, that was a terrible kind of call, really. Not a very good worry to sort of cling on to. Over here, he counters by charging my knights with his Flame Berserkers, and despite my defense 4 and ability to reroll 6s, this actually really went his way. I actually failed quite a lot of saves here and resolve checks, and they managed to mash up like a couple of stands of knights unexpectedly, so they did very, very well. On this side, we've got the Steelshaper with the boys, of course, at point-blank range, and this just gives them an easy target, really, blowing away the militia here very, very easily, so this causes a lot of casualties, and I just didn't really need to give them that opportunity, I guess. Over here, the Mounted Squires, with the Flame Berserkers having already activated, we're going to just march around here and set up a position where I can charge the Hellbringer Drake if he doesn't deal with them. So I know he's got one unit of Fireforged to bring on the table. They could show up nearby, but with Tenacious 2 against shooting, I might be able to survive with like a stand here, and next turn I can just get in the way, and that's all they really, really want to do. So the character here has to choose between on the left blowing up the militia or on the right blowing up the Squires. Can't remember which way he went on that. I think it was against the militia. But, yeah, just can't really remember the exact outcome. Over here we've got the Mage healing back some wounds from the men-at-arms, from the casualties they took against the Ballistae. And just a glamour close-up photo. I wish I'd written down some notes about what he actually did with his spells, but I think that he kills like one stand of Squires and does some damage to the militia, just whatever was in range. So over here, the men-at-arms, not really double marching. The thought here is just to completely take the punishment from the Ballistae. We're moving through and then we're wheeling around here. And the reason why we're not march charging to tie up the guns is because we didn't want this regiment here to charge the flank of the swords. Can you see that? So if I'd march charge, the edge of my unit regiment would have been there. He gets a flank charge with initiates plus hold reg, and that could have had the result of wiping this regiment out, freeing these guys up to go directly against the guys here. If I start taking a lot of casualties with the crossbows that aren't being healed back, I lose access to scoring, and that would have been a disaster. But with this position instead, he can't charge me on the side with the initiates. These initiates are just going to go for this zone over here, and if the Ballistae shoot at me, I'm not going to take that many casualties, and I can heal back the wounds with the Mage, and then I can just attack them later. So that is the thought process. Over here, because the swordsmen are now blocking line of sight from the Mage to get to the ballista with shooting, moving up onto the hill and firing at the initiates instead off in the distance with the crossbows. Over here, the Hunter Cadre have got a target now with the Hellbringer, so they're trying to plink off a few wounds, but not really getting a lot of damage, even with Fiend Hunter there. And then, as predicted, the hold reg moves onto this zone and sets up a position to attack later. But yeah, he's not in a great spot. The crossbows are a fair way away, and the situation here is that the swordsmen are going to go after the Ballistae. I just feel like this is a small positioning mistake from my opponent, because if you look at this diagonal, this here, that's kind of like the line of sight of the initiates, and if these guys move past into that area there, the back of the regiments is going to be through this zone here, so I'm going to be able to move past his line of sight. What I felt like he should have done is actually had the corner of his regiment sort of facing through that angle, so he would still have the opportunity of flanking me if I go after the Ballistae. So there it is there, the Ballistae, beautifully painted. They're very sharp with their crossbow bolts and just plapping into the swordsmen, but of course, there's only so much they can do. Over here, the Imperial officer, as predicted, just moving into this vacant zone here and able to score some points with his 4 stands. And at the very last, near to the end of the turn, we're just going to charge the Flame Berserkers in the flank and completely delete them with the Household Guard. So that happens. And, of course, because these guys don't have to use the Inspire ability, they just get it from charging. They can reform at the end, although I believe what happened here is that we had to reform then charge. Can't quite remember what happened there. So brings on his Fireforged to shoot at the 1 stand with the Squires, but these guys are hitting on 2s, and I've got Tenacious 2, so it didn't actually end up dying, but this stand is broken because the Hellbringer Drake, or the character and the spells, have actually done some damage to his buddy. All right, so we have the Ashen Dawn just moving in right behind the Hunter Cadre. We want to be very cautious about them. I do want to contest that zone up ahead there, but again, the most powerful part of his forces are in the center. That's the Fireforged and the Initiates and the Hellbringer and soon to be Ironclad Drake. So these guys have to be a bit cautious. Over here, he's got what's left of the Kerouac's regiment after the Elysian Fragment, just camping the zone, but in comes the Ironclad Drake behind them. This is sort of what I'm worried about. If the Ashen Dawn end up positioned badly, they don't really want to fight the Ironclad Drake because of all of that cleave. So we've got to be careful about that situation. So here's the end result of turn 4. On the right-hand side, again, it's just crossbows and swordsmen versus hold reg and Ballistae, so he's kind of got a bit of an advantage there, but due to that misposition, I think, from the Initiates, the swordsmen are going to be able to heal up, charge the Ballistae, kill them, and the Mage is going to be able to perpetually shoot everything there, so it might take him a little while. If you look carefully, this little red counter and his red counter there, those are the zones that we are denying each other based on the scenarios. So I'm basically saying you can't capture this zone, and he's saying you can't capture this zone. So over here, he's scoring from this one, I'm scoring from this one, and I'm scoring from this one. So in terms of the points, 100 Kingdoms are just shooting well into the lead at the stage. So I've been able to score multiple rounds. He's only had, 2 to 4 points on the board so far. We're going to go with the Men-at-Arms first to go straight into the Ballistae to avoid the line of sight of the Initiates. Then we're going to go with the Mounted Squire to tie up the Hellbringer and move around to the Household Guard right at the end. So here we go, Men-at-Arms charging directly into the Ballistae, doing a little bit of damage here, but most importantly, denying them the opportunity to ever fire their crossbows ever again, and getting out of line of sight of that nearby hull reg you can see on the right-hand side of the photo. Over here, we've got the Fireforged. They know they need to score, so they can't aim shoot the Squire, so they move onto the zone and attempt to shoot him. Or maybe they double marched. I can't quite remember exactly the play there, but I know that this Squire somehow manages to survive. So as a result, he rallies and charges the Hellbringer. This is not super impactful. What can happen here quite easily is that the character can actually fire one spell at the Squire to kill it, and then another spell somewhere else. Although the Squire is tenacious too against shooting, the Hellbringer Drake can now use close combat attacks, which won't trigger the tenacious, so it's not exactly a powerful play here by the Squire. So there you go. We have the Hellbringer activating next, killing the Squire, and the character is free to go off and blow something else up. Possibly the Hunter Cadre and Ashen you can see up the top left. Over here, we have the Mage, able to fire at the Initiates up in the distance there. If they just stay camping that zone for the rest of the game, they're eventually going to start losing people, because they've got no way of healing back in this list, but the Mage can continue peppering them with firepower. Over here, the Hunter Cadre moving onto his zone. I know I can't score from it, but I can get in the way of the stuff that wants to go after the Ashen Dawn. Also, if he charges the Hunter Cadre with the Initiates, I can counter with the Ashen Dawn later. There's also not enough of a gap between the Hunter Cadre, if you look at the front of their base there, and the Initiates. This big old base isn't going to quite fit in between that space there. So that's part of the planning with the positioning of the Cadre. Over here, the Ballistae have taken some damage, of course, from their swords, but they're going to fight back with their little bayonets. In the middle, we've got the Fireforged here, able to move up and try to get some damage done to the Ashen Dawn, but not quite ready to do the ultimate damage yet, because they have to move to get into range, and they're only hitting on 2s, but still doing some work. I'm taking some wounds there already on the Ashen Dawn. With the big boy here, he's going to reform a little bit and then march around on a bit of an angle and sort of wheel back around to find a slot here. And the thinking is that if he can actually attack these guys or kill them with a spell, it's going to free him up to charge. And of course, my own men here are blocking the Ashen Dawn from charging the Ironclad Drake. So pretty good position for him to be in. Sets up a play later on. Over here, the one surviving Household Knight, who was sort of his buddies absolutely decimated there by the Flame Berserkers earlier in the game, rallies and reforms and sort of just turns around. And the idea is that in the next turn, once the Household Guard move up off the zone, the Knight can actually move onto the zone and score. Hopefully not getting assassinated by the Hellbringer, but that's life. Over here, the Imperial officer just telling his men to be quiet and just, calm down and sort of lay low and hope that nobody notices them, because they're scoring every single turn here. And once the Dweghom realize that they're doing that, then they may, send a few bullets their way and kill a standard bowman, and the Mage is too far away to heal them back. So I will lose scoring from this zone for the rest of the game if he actually attacks me with anything. Even a stiff breeze is going to knock off one stand of these guys, and that'll be the end of their game. Over here, though, the Ashen Dawn, they go for a bit of a long bomb, so they march forward and charge the Fireforged. This is quite a critical play here, because even though they're charging through a forest, getting no impact hits, it sets up a clash next turn, and if I don't do anything with this regiment, they are eventually going to get boxed in by the Ironclad Drake and shot at by, big AP2 shells from the Hellbringer and the Fireforged. So at the very least, I want to try and trade them for this big regiment here with the Steelshaper in it, or tie them up for a couple of turns, and the Ashen Dawn are a great regiment to do that. So the fact that I pulled this charge off is big. It also takes them out of line of sight of that Ironclad. Over here, we're charging the Initiates with the Hunter Cadre, and this is, again, to block the Hellbringer from getting aware that the edge of its base, as you can see, is not going to be able to fit past the position of my base, so it's just kind of boxing them in a little bit. And this regiment doesn't do a lot of damage in close combat, so they might not be able to kill these guys in one go, so I can just slow down the center of that play for a little bit. And then crucially, the Household Guard reforming and marching forward. And this presents a really big problem for my opponent in this way, because these guys, if they win the roll next turn, they can charge that. And with all of the supporting attacks, they will kill this Drake in a one shot. So that's big. That is sort of there to scare the bejesus out of my opponent and make him have to activate the Drake first and go and run it away somewhere. Because if he just gets charged and loses the Drake, then that's pretty much lights out. And I've got a Knight, as you can see from the corner of the top right corner of that photo, to go and score. So that's going to force him really to play his hand early with the Drake. Over here, his initiates are turning around. So instead of going to turn towards the swordsmen to fight them off, he's turning around to try and flank the Ashen Dawn. And that's good for me, because it means that my crossbows and men-at-arms are going to delete his ballistae, and I'm going to be able to eventually turn the men-at-arms around to go into the rear of his initiates, just because he's been so scared by these Ashen Dawns. So that is helpful for me. It means that I'm not going to lose my swordsman there. So we come into probably turn 6, I'm thinking, where we're going with the Ashen Dawn first to try and get the jump on the Fireforged. We want to have a round of clashing them before the inevitable -1 armor spell comes onto me and they start whacking me. Then we're going to go with the men-at-arms and then the Hunter Cadre. You'll notice that I'm not doing the Household Guard first, and that's because my opponent's more likely to win the roll, and I know that the Ironclad Drake's going first either way, so I can take advantage of that Ironclad Drake going first by activating some other things. So regardless of whether I come first or second in the roll, I'm going to get value in those other things. Whereas if I just bank the Household Guard going first and I don't go first, then he's just going to be able to sort of do better in other regiments. Okay, so this is how it looks. The trees are obscuring the position of the Household Guard, but they're over here. And if I win the roll, I could have charged there. But what he's going to inevitably do is run this guy backwards or sneak past the tree there. What I'll be attempting to do first is attack with these guys into the Fireforged and these guys into the Ballistae and just really weaken them on this flank here, and the Household Guard can catch up later. So there's the left-hand side of the field. We've got the Household Guard ready to go after either the Ironclad or the Fireforged on your left, and then the Knight can move towards that zone that they're going to vacate, but with the Hellbringer being on that side, he probably won't last very long. And of course the Militia, 80 points for the regiment, 80 points for the character, and scoring so many points off that little zone. We're well ahead on scoring right now. So my opponent wins the roll, goes for the Scaredy Cat Ironclad Drake first. He weaves his way past the tree and past the Hunter Cadre and gets out of charge range of the Household Guard. We then have the Ashen Dawn bashing up the boys here, but they have Defense 4 and they do have Elemental Potency tokens, so not too many casualties from the Ashen Dawn. Then, of course, he's got his Initiates, which are going to try and fight their way out here against the Hunter Cadre, but just not able to do very much here. And he's also worried about the Household Guard charging him, although they're a little bit too far away from that. So yeah, the Carawig trying to rid themselves of these Hunter Cadre, but just not getting enough done. He's doing a combat reform here, but the Evasion 2 of the boys just manages to hold them off another turn, which is embarrassing. Over here, the Swordsmen, men-at-arms, just chewing into the Ballistae a bit more. And we have a flank charge from the Initiates with their Rag into the side of the Ashen Dawn. But again, you know, you've got Defense 4, Resolve 5, Blessed, all of that fun stuff. So they're not immediately going down. This combat's going to last quite a while. The one stand of Hunter Cadre attacking back against the Initiates, who are, you know, are in the embarrassing position of not having removed them yet. And of course, the Hellbringer Drake is able to go after your boys here, the Household Guard. Although the thinking is, too, that it wants to be able to back up a little bit and avoid being charged by all the Hellbirds. The Mage continuing to basically heal the men-at-arms, and that's the reason why they still have 3 stands left. She just keeps raising them back like a necromancer. And the Hellbringer just pulling back a little bit, able to shoot at whatever it feels like, but just generally avoiding the long-range charge. And the Fireforged shooting at the Household Guard here, but not able to do very much. Their AP2 is very much countered by Armor of Dominion. So that's where we have the Fireforged battering away at the Ashen Dawn. We are now able to remove a stand of them thanks to like the -1 armor spell and all of that. So still a stand or two of Ashen Dawn remaining, of course. The Imperial officer is now going to have to contend with one Ironclad Drake, but my hope is that it'll be too late in the game for that. Like, he'll be able to start scoring over here, but both flanks will be crumbling for the Dweghom at the stage. So I'm just reforming and pulling back, or, you know, attempting to shoot him. Over here we have the long bomb charge, the march charge against the Fireforged with the Household Guard. Idea here is that I'm easily going to be able to destroy them, and this knight is going to walk onto that zone. But after doing that, of course, the Hellbringer Drake is going to come over here and pepper this guy, so that can be expected, but at least I'm starting to get the upper hand on attrition, whereas I thought that I wouldn't earlier on. So the knight able to touch the base of the forest, so that may help him slightly against the Dweghom character. Going to the remaining turns, we're going to go Ashen Dawn first before they die, then the Hunter Cadre again before they die, then, you know, Household Guard and so on. So this is the battlefield position. I've sewn up the right-hand flank with the Men-at-Arms and the Mage in the middle. He's going to be able to kill the Ashen Dawn eventually and kill the Militia eventually and the Hunter Cadre eventually. But on the left-hand side, I'm going to be able to wipe out his Fireforged and go after his Drake eventually. So there you have it. That's the position. He's got his Drake there to blow up my knight very shortly. So Kerouac going after the Hunter Cadre at the start there. Ashen Dawn battering away against the Fireforged, but not really getting that far. The Hellbringer Drake moving up and blasting the knight. Does roll very well, though, and the knight does go down, so that's no more scoring from that zone from me. We've got the Household Guard able to one-round these guys. Doesn't take them much of breaking a sweat to eradicate the Fireforged. And, of course, they are auto-inspired from the Relentless Drills, so they can use their second action to reform, facing the Hellbringer Drake, which means that in the next turn, if I win the roll, I can just charge him and one-shot him, and that's going to basically seal the game there. So yeah, Hellbringer Drake trying to get out of dodge, but can't really, and just has to fling a few spells. Men-at-Arms, close-up shot against the Ballista. The combat's still raging on. The Mage over here just still continuing to pepper the back of the Initiates in the distance who are fighting the Ashen Dawn at the moment. So we have AP1 and ignoring their shields, starting to take off a stand or two. The Rag trying to slap face, but he doesn't have the Dragonblood, so he's just AP1, so still not taking down the Ashen Dawn. They're going to be around there for a while. We have the hilarious Militia Bowmen double marching backwards instead of shooting. We're going to let the Drake walk onto the zone, because that will give me one turn where I may potentially be able to double march onto the zone and actually contest it, which would be very annoying for my opponent. So he's just marching on here, and if he attacks the Militia, he'll have to leave the zone, so it's just more points being lost at that point in time. So we're going to go Household Guard first in the next turn and hopefully get the jump on the Drake, and that's the battlefield position there. You can see I am in control of the right-hand flank and left-hand flank, but the middle, it's still sort of a bit of contest there. And over this side, I've got the guards facing down the Hellbringer. So yeah, again, this is the card stack: Household Guard, then Ashen Dawn, then Mage. So yeah, I do manage to take out the roll, and these guys do charge into the flank of the Hellbringer. I've lost a couple of stands, but as you can see, I mean, it's a lot of attacks, and it's in the flank, so this guy just stands no chance, and he's deleted. Over here, the Ashen Dawn, I've got one stand left, which is quite critical, because he's locked down these two regiments, so they can't really contribute to the game, so he's done very, very well there. That's why I like continuing to put these guys in my lists. Again, the Mage just continuing to hold off that zone and pepper the back of the Initiates, and the Men-at-Arms able to... Well, actually, this is where the Ashen Dawn have finally fallen. In the household, the Rag turns around to face me, but not much left that he can do at this stage. So I've got the Men-at-Arms there ready to protect. He's only got two stands left. I can heal these guys back. I should be able to eventually win the day on that front too. Hellbringer moving onto the edge of the zone to prevent any, shenanigans there from the Militia Bowmen. So that's kind of cute. And they're just going to charge him, of course, bring out the knives, stab him, doing like a couple of wounds, just for fun. Obviously, this makes no difference to the game whatsoever, but we just thought that would be hilarious. And that's sort of like an overview of where we ended up. So on the left-hand side, I lost my knight, but I've got the household guards scoring. On the right-hand side, I've got the mage scoring, and then the other 3 zones are held by my opponent. But this is sort of like turn 7, turn 8, and I've been like double scoring for every other turn. So we calculated it and realized that even if he scores the maximum number of points for the rest of the entire game, he'll still lose by a pretty big margin. So we called it there a win to the 100 Kingdoms, but it was a very hard-fought game, well fought. I think there were a few positioning errors here and there, but in general, having the card activation and the strength of the Household Guard, Ashen Dawn there, worked wonders. So it'll be cool to see if Dweghom get a bit of an update soon to put a little bit of teeth back into the faction. I remember back when Dweghom won every single tournament and they were just unbeatable, but that was like one particular phase, I think around about 2013 or something like that. No, not 2013, 2023, excuse me, thinking of the wrong era. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this bat rep. We'll have some more content for you guys soon. Stick around, don't forget to like and subscribe, and yeah, really appreciate you.